Emma, a waitress working double shifts to make ends meet, noticed a grieving widow sitting alone in the corner of the diner. Sensing her pain, Emma decided to pay for the woman's meal out of her own pocket. Little did she know, this small act of kindness would change her life forever. Just 2 days later, a lawyer arrived with news that would alter Emma's world in ways she could never have imagined.
Emma had been working at the small diner for nearly 3 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Just barely. Every day felt like a struggle. Between balancing her rent, student loans, and caring for her elderly mother, Emma was always running on fumes. But even when life felt heavy, Emma never lost her kindness. It was a rainy Wednesday afternoon when she noticed the woman for the first time. She sat at the far end of the diner, close to the window, staring out at the gray sky. Emma could tell something was wrong. Her face carried the weight of loss. Her eyes hollow, red from crying. When Emma walked over to take her order, the woman barely glanced at the menu. "I'll just have some tea." Nothing else, the woman said softly, her voice barely a whisper. Emma's heart ached for her. She didn't pry, but she could feel the sorrow radiating from the woman. As she prepared the tea, she couldn't stop thinking about how lonely the woman looked. When she returned with the tea, she hesitated, then asked, "Is there anything else you need?" The woman shook her head, a faint, sad smile appearing on her face. "No, this is enough. Thank you." Emma nodded and walked away, but she couldn't shake the feeling. She watched as the woman slowly sipped her tea, staring into the distance as though she were lost in her thoughts. A few minutes later, when the woman quietly asked for the check, Emma made a decision. She would cover the cost of the tea. It was a small gesture, but maybe it would bring a little light into her day. When the woman came up to the register, Emma smiled and handed her a receipt with a simple note written on it, "Your meal is on me. Take care." The woman looked surprised, her eyes filling with tears as she read the note. She looked at Emma, her voice catching as she spoke. I don't know what to say." Emma smiled gently. "No need to say anything. Just take care of yourself, okay?" The woman nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks as she whispered, "Thank you. Thank you so much." As the woman left the diner, Emma felt a sense of warmth spread through her. She didn't know this woman's story, but she knew that, in that moment, she had made a difference, however small. She went back to her shift, the memory of the woman's grateful smile staying with her throughout the day. But Emma had no idea that this small act of kindness was about to bring something far bigger into her life. 2 days passed, and Emma returned to her usual routine at the diner. The quiet hum of customers, the clatter of plates. Everything was as ordinary as ever. She had almost forgotten about the woman from the other day until the door to the diner opened, and in walked a man in a dark suit. His presence immediately caught Emma's attention. He looked out of place, too formal for a place like this. The man scanned the diner before walking straight up to the counter where Emma stood. He gave her a polite nod. "Good afternoon. Are you Emma?" he asked, his tone professional but not unfriendly. Emma blinked, feeling a little confused. "Yes, I'm Emma. Can I help you with something?" The man smiled faintly, pulling a folder from his briefcase. "My name is Mr. Holloway. I'm a lawyer representing a client who recently visited this diner." Emma's heart skipped a beat. The memory of the woman and her tearful thanks flashed through her mind. But why would a lawyer be looking for her? "Is this about the woman who was here 2 days ago?" she asked cautiously. Mr. Holloway nodded. "Yes, that's correct. She asked me to find you. You see, my client recently lost her husband, and she's been struggling with grief ever since. The other day, your kindness touched her deeply, more than you might realize." Emma felt her cheeks flush. She had only bought the woman a cup of tea. It didn't seem like a big deal to her. It was nothing, really. "I just wanted to help," Emma said, her voice trailing off. The lawyer smiled gently, sensing her modesty. It may have seemed like a small gesture to you, but to her, it meant everything. She was at a very low point in her life, and your kindness gave her hope. Emma felt a lump forming in her throat. She didn't know what to say. But before she could respond, Mr. Holloway continued. "My client was so moved by what you did that she made a decision. She's decided to make a significant financial gift to you." Emma's eyes widened in shock. "What? A financial gift?" The lawyer nodded, opening the folder and pulling out a document. She wanted to express her gratitude in a way that could truly impact your life. You've been named the recipient of a large sum of money, enough to help you in ways she felt were fitting, given your own struggles. Emma stared at the document, her mind racing. She had never imagined that something like this could happen. It felt surreal, like a dream. I don't know what to say, Emma whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Holloway smiled kindly. You don't need to say anything. Just know that your kindness has made a difference, and now, her kindness will make a difference in your life. Emma sat in stunned silence as Mr. Holloway placed the papers in front of her. The diner felt unusually quiet, as though the world had slowed down for a moment. She blinked, staring at the document, still struggling to process what had just been said. How much, she finally asked, her voice barely audible. Mr. Holloway cleared his throat, glancing at the paper in front of him. The amount is substantial, enough to cover any immediate financial concerns you may have and more. It's a sum of $50,000. Emma's breath caught in her throat. $50,000? She couldn't believe what she was hearing. That amount of money could change everything. Her rent, her debts, her mother's care. All the worries that had been weighing her down for years could be lifted in an instant. I don't know if I can accept this, Emma said, her voice shaking as she looked up at the lawyer. Mr. Holloway gave her a kind but firm look. My client was very clear. This isn't just about the money. It's about what you did for her. She wants to repay that kindness, and this is the way she's chosen to do it. Emma nodded slowly, her mind still swirling. She hadn't expected anything in return for her small gesture. In fact, she had forgotten all about it after that day. But now, sitting here with a lawyer and a life-changing sum of money being offered to her, she realized just how powerful kindness could be. As Mr. Holloway went over the details of how the funds would be transferred to her, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the woman. She could picture her sitting there in the corner of the diner, her face lined with sorrow. Emma had known she was grieving, but she hadn't realized just how deep that grief went. Once Mr. Holloway finished explaining everything, he stood up and handed Emma his business card. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My client wanted me to assure you that this gift comes with no strings attached. It's simply her way of saying thank you. Emma stood as well, still holding the card in her trembling hand. Please tell her, thank you. I don't even know how to express what this means to me. The lawyer nodded with a gentle smile. I will, Emma. Take care. With that, Mr. Holloway left the diner, leaving Emma standing there, her mind reeling from the conversation. She sat back down at the counter, her heart racing. How could a single act of kindness, something as small as buying a cup of tea, lead to something this huge? As the hours passed and the diner buzzed with customers, Emma found herself lost in thought. She had always believed in the importance of helping others. But this was different. This wasn't just about her kindness. It was about the connection she had unknowingly made with that woman. A connection that had now changed her life forever. In the days that followed, Emma found herself overwhelmed by the enormity of what had happened. She hadn't spoken to anyone about the money, not yet. It all still felt too surreal. She spent hours thinking about what she would do. How she could finally make changes in her life that she had only dreamed of. One evening, after her shift at the diner, she sat down with her mother, a cup of tea warming her hands. Her mother, frail but sharp, noticed that something was different about Emma. You've been quiet lately. Everything all right? Her mother asked softly, her eyes studying Emma. Emma smiled. The kind of smile that hid 1,000 thoughts. I'm okay, Mom. Just a lot on my mind. Her mother tilted her head slightly. I know you. There's something more. You can tell me. Emma took a deep breath. She knew she couldn't keep this to herself any longer. Something happened a few days ago. Something that's going to change things for us. Her mother looked at her, a mixture of curiosity and concern crossing her face. What do you mean? Emma hesitated for a moment, then told her the story about the woman at the diner, about the lawyer, and about the unbelievable gift she had received. Her mother listened intently, her eyes widening in disbelief as Emma explained. $50,000, her mother whispered, her voice full of shock. Emma nodded, still feeling a bit stunned by it all herself. I couldn't believe it either. I didn't do anything special. I just wanted to help her. Her mother reached out and took Emma's hand, her grip weak but steady. Sometimes, it's the small things that matter most. You may not have thought much of what you did, but to her, it was everything. Emma squeezed her mother's hand, feeling the warmth and comfort of the connection they shared. I just didn't expect this. I didn't expect any of it. Her mother smiled gently. Kindness has a way of coming back to you, even when you least expect it. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything settling in. Emma knew her life was about to change in ways she hadn't imagined. The money would help her pay off her debts, take care of her mother, and maybe even allow her to take a break from the relentless hours at the diner. But more than that, it had reminded her of the power of a simple act of compassion. In the quiet of the evening, Emma realized something important. It wasn't just the money that had changed her life. It was the connection she had made with that grieving widow. A connection that had touched both their lives in ways neither of them could have anticipated. As Emma sat there with her mother, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not just for the financial gift, but for the reminder that even in her own struggles, she had the power to make a difference in someone else's life. And in doing so, she had changed her own. A week after Mr. Holloway's visit, Emma finally decided to reach out to the woman who had changed her life. She had been thinking about her constantly, wondering how she was doing, whether she had found peace after the loss of her husband. Emma didn't know if the woman wanted to hear from her, but she felt like she needed to say thank you. She called the number Mr. Holloway had given her and left a simple message. It's Emma from the diner. I just wanted to say thank you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. A few days passed with no response, and Emma started to think that maybe the woman didn't want to reopen old wounds. But then, one morning, as Emma was getting ready for her shift, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. She answered hesitantly. Emma? It's Grace. The woman you helped at the diner. Emma's heart raced. She hadn't expected to hear from her. Grace, I'm so glad you called. I wasn't sure if you would. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Grace spoke again, her voice was soft but steady. I've been thinking about calling you. It's just been hard, you know. Emma nodded, even though Grace couldn't see her. I understand. I just wanted to thank you. I don't even know how to put it into words. What you did for me has changed everything. Grace was quiet for a moment before she spoke again. You know, Emma, after my husband passed, I felt like the world had crumbled around me. I didn't think anyone could understand the pain I was going through. But when I walked into that diner, and you showed me that kindness, it was like a light in the darkness. Emma felt her eyes well up with tears. I didn't know what to say that day. I just saw how much you were hurting, and I wanted to help in some way. You did more than help, Grace replied, her voice filled with emotion. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world. People like you, and I wanted to do something for you in return. I wanted to show you the same kindness you showed me. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat, feeling the weight of Grace's words. I'm so grateful, Grace. I really am. I'll never forget what you've done for me. Grace's voice softened. Neither will I, Emma. Neither will I. After they hung up, Emma sat in silence, letting the conversation sink in. The money had been a blessing, yes, but this connection with Grace was something far deeper. It was a reminder that even in the hardest times, the smallest gestures could create ripples that change lives. Months passed, and Emma's life began to stabilize. She used the money to pay off her debts, get ahead on her bills, and make sure her mother had everything she needed. She even cut back on her hours at the diner, giving herself more time to rest and breathe. For the first time in years, Emma didn't feel like she was drowning. But what stuck with her most was the lesson Grace had taught her. That kindness has a way of coming back to you, often when you least expect it. Emma continued to work at the diner, but now, every time she served a customer, she remembered that small gestures. A smile, a kind word, a cup of tea could change someone's world. As she looked out at the busy diner, filled with the chatter of everyday people, Emma smiled to herself. She had learned that life wasn't just about the struggles. It was about the connections we make, the kindness we show, and the unexpected ways those moments come back to us.